Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Molly and today is a windy day. It's between storms and I wanted to show you what my yard looks like before we hit a deep freeze tonight. We're going to get into the mid-20s. Last night was below freezing, but it was just barely below freezing. So I wanted to give you a tour of everything that I've done so far, what it looks like before it all goes to bed for the winter. So this may be a little bit longer video. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, but let's go look and see what my yard looks like right now. So we're going to start in my front yard. This is the south side of my driveway, and I don't know if the sun is showing the color, but the chase tree decided to bloom again. This is Shoals Creek and it seems to have a long bloom. It has a first flush of bloom, which is a really heavy bloom in June. Then we get a few blooms here and there, from June until November, and then in November it gives a final beautiful flush of blooms. And they are absolutely gorgeous. So Shoals Creek chase tree, or Vitex agnus castus. Gorgeous tree. My hydrangeas never changed color. The flowers, this is I think strawberry vanilla or vanilla strawberry. And it's supposed to change colors and have beautiful pink flowers in the fall, but it just burns and it does not change colors. But I still love it, so we're going to keep it. And the same thing happened, and I'm really disappointed with this, with my Little Lime Punch. These are supposed to be gorgeous flowers, but we'll wait and see. Maybe one of these years they will change colors and be beautiful. Well, I take that back. They are beautiful, but maybe they'll change colors and be beautiful. Whatever. Now, I spent all day yesterday trying to get all of my plants covered up. It took all day from about 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. in the rain, freezing weather. I was so wet and so cold by the time I was done. But these are not finished. These are on the south side of my house, and I will do a video about how I fully cover these. And I'll show you in a minute what it looks like when they're fully covered. These are my fig trees getting ready to go to bed for the winter, and I did have to prune them while the leaves are still on them. I think that's going to be an issue here in Utah. They are too big to put under cover until it absolutely freezes. And I waited 1 year until it froze and the leaves fell off, and then it completely died to the ground. Don't want these dying to the ground because I want early crops. So we're just trying to figure it out. We'll see if the heavy pruning negatively affects them for next year. This is my hardy pistachio. I'll link a video up above that tells you a little bit more about that, but it's doing great. I'm going to do some more shaping and better pruning next year. I think this is its third year that it's been in the ground, and it's looking pretty good. This one down here is a Golden Falls Redbud. It's really short. I don't know if it's going to get any taller, but we've been trialing this one to see how well it does here. And it did burn a little bit, but it really was quite pretty. And it'll be interesting to see how it looks as it fills out. My butterfly bushes are pretty much done. We've got a stray bloom here and there, but they're going to be going to sleep here shortly. And the rain last night did a number on my mum, but I love the color of this mum. Catmint is still growing strong. The day before yesterday, before the storm hit, it was full of bees. The bees have been loving these late bloomers. This is a little bit worse for wear. It was really gorgeous on Friday. I thought I had more time yesterday before the storm to be able to do a video, but it just did not work. So you didn't get to see it in its full, absolute, utter fall glory, but this is what it looks like after it's been battered by a cold storm. The yellow mums are some of my favorite for this time of year. They keep their color until the frost kills them. Got my little pansies. Zinnias are under cover, but they're completely covered in powdery mildew and they need to come out here shortly. And the Swiss chard will do just fine until we get a really deep freeze, somewhere below 20 degrees, and they die to the ground. Every once in a while they will come back if it doesn't get too cold, but then they flower the next year. So I generally tear them out in the spring. We're starting to see signs of fall color. This is the color of the chokeberry. This one was transplanted this last year, so it's a little puny. This one was a new plant that was really root bound. So next year, I think the fall color is going to be absolutely gorgeous. Let's show you the groundhog chokeberries. Now these are also starting to change color. I think once they fill in, they should be 3 feet by 3 feet. That'll be a really pretty patch of color if the weather cooperates. Fall color is a little late this year because we've had such a warm fall. This fall has been in the 70s during the day and the 50s at night. And this is the first day it's gotten below the 50s in the day and below like the 40s at night. This is a Glow Girl Spirea, just starting its fall color, and the fall color is absolutely gorgeous. Now this one has started to change, but it's the only one that's been changing. Here's another one that's kind of thinking about changing. But I love Glow Girl Spirea. They have the white flowers in the spring. They're kind of a chartreuse in the spring, also the leaves. And then we get a gorgeous fall color. Now I did a video on my golden berries earlier, and I'll link that at the top. And look at all these berries just about ready to get ripe, and the frost is going to kill this plant tonight. So that's it. We're not going to get any more off that. Next year I'm going to try to get them started a little bit earlier, and then hopefully the weather will cooperate so I can have a better harvest. Now one of my Munstead lavenders decided it's time to bloom again. Look how pretty those are. These are really hardy, wonderful plants. I absolutely love lavender. Now I've done videos on alyssum and talked about alyssum a lot, but this is one of the reasons I love alyssum the most. These will not die back or look bad until we get probably 25 degrees. And then I will leave them on the ground for a little while so the seeds can fall, and then they'll come back again next year. Now the only issue is it seems like the white ones are the only ones that really reseed themselves. So if I want this pretty dark purple, I've got to either grow it by seed myself or get them at the nursery. This is my little sunflower pawpaw. It's going to be its 3rd year in the ground next spring, and I think it's going to be ready to leave without a cover. It was uncovered part of the summer and it only burned a little bit, so I think it's going to be fine, and it's growing quite a bit. I used to have another 5-year-old pawpaw over here that just never got any growth. I pulled it out of the ground and it had almost no root system. So my warning to you is if you have plants that are not thriving, don't wait and hope and pray, just take them out and start over. I've wasted 5 years trying to get that plant to grow, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. It just had enough roots to keep it alive, but not to really grow. This is my Davis pawpaw. It's getting ready to go dormant. I fully suspect it not to have leaves by tomorrow. Here's my medlar. Let me show you the fruit. The fruit is big enough to harvest, but I think I'm going to let it get a few deep freezes, maybe wait until mid-November, maybe even the end of November, and then harvest it. Last year I left a few on the tree just to see what would happen when they went through hard freezes, and they actually bledded a lot faster. Now if you're wondering what bledding is and what medlars are, I'll link another video up at the top just to show you what I've done with them. My agastache is almost done. It's still quite pretty. I've emptied out all my other green stalks completely, but this one I've left. I've got to figure out what to do with the strawberries and how to overwinter them. I think once they die back with the cold, I'm going to stuff all the holes in the green stalk with straw and see how they do. This is what my hydrangeas look like. I'm hoping the fall freeze does not I'm hoping the fact that they have not gone dormant yet and the leaves haven't changed color, I'm hoping that does not affect the flowering for next year. Sometimes when the freeze comes in and just kills the leaves before they go dormant, I don't have a very good year the next year for flowers. So we're hoping that does better. Everything else is starting to go dormant. And I wanted to show you what a fig tree looks like when it's completely covered. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a video on my front trees when those are ready. So I have 2 cages around it. The inside cage is wrapped with insulation. And the reason I do that is to kind of keep everything off of the fig tree inside. So the fig tree is tied up inside. And then the outside around it is the insulation. You know, I use the silver Home Depot insulation, the thin stuff that's kind of bubbly inside. And then I put another cage around that and stuff that cage with straw. And there's probably a good 6 inches of straw all the way around this. And then I cover it with greenhouse plastic. The top comes off, and when it's warmer, I can actually take the top off and push the straw away from the tree a little bit so it can breathe. Now I'm not going to cover this Ronde Bordeaux. This is also Ronde Bordeaux. When I purchased this tree, it was supposed to be a Celeste. It was supposed to be an improved Celeste, but I think the nursery messed up and it's a Ronde Bordeaux. I don't want 2 Ronde Bordeaux, so I'm going to test this one, see how it does over the winter without being covered at all, and see what, if it dies to the ground, which it probably will, and then what happens when it comes back next year. And then I think I'm going to give this tree away because I do want an improved Celeste. I'm going to do the same with my Chicago Hardy. This is the second Chicago Hardy that I've had. The first one is out in front, so this one is also going to be given away, and I'm just going to let it die back over the winter and see what happens. This one I'm pretty sure is just going to die to the ground. It died to the ground last winter, and this is the amount of growth I got off it. I did cover my Negron, or Violette de Bordeaux, and it's covered the same way as my Ronde Bordeaux. I did cover my pomegranates. This is one of my pomegranates, and I surrounded the inside with insulation, but I didn't put straw around the outside of that. Pomegranates are a little hardier. Last year I stuffed it with leaves, which I think is a little less insulation than straw, and they survived beautifully. So I think this year with the covering of plastic, they'll be fine, and then the next year I'm going to try them without the plastic. We still have my persimmons. This is a Nikita's Gift persimmon. You can see the fall colors starting, and they're going to be glorious. Look how pretty that is. So my Nikita's Gift persimmons are still ripening. They can go through heavy freezes and it helps them ripen. So we're just going to leave these on the tree until they start to soften a little bit. They're still rock hard. You can see a little bit of frost damage on the tomatoes, but they're definitely done. I harvested everything. I used the stakes in building my supports for my trees. So these are coming out whenever I get the time. Although my basil did not get any frost damage. It's usually one of the first ones to go. That's very interesting. We've started building my beds. I'm trying out this configuration. I'm going to probably not fill them till spring and keep trying different configurations until I'm happy with it. But I have 3 new Vijayga raised beds. And I'll put a link down below. I have an affiliate link. Once I find the proper configuration, I'm definitely going to level them. This is not a level area, so I've got to level them before I fill them. But we'll see how they do. As soon as the heavy frost takes out my Jerusalem artichokes, I'll be able to harvest those and try that out. We harvested the fruit off my jujube tree except for the very top where I couldn't reach. And the wind is bringing them down, the ones that I couldn't reach. And I had a huge harvest this year. Look how pretty those are. I'm going to post a picture to show you exactly how many I got, and that's probably about 3/4 of what was left on the tree. And I think what I'm going to do with them is I'm just going to candy them this year. I lost all the ones that I dried last year and found them again, so I have tons of dried jujubes, but you can kind of see how many are around. Now I don't know if anybody remembers in the last videos, but I had a large gooseberry here, and it quit producing about 6 years ago, and so I just took that out and we're going to be replacing that. This was supposed to be an Invictus gooseberry, but it turned out to be a pink one. Invictus are green, so I don't know exactly what kind of gooseberry this is. So I'll probably order another Invictus for that side and see if we can get it to produce. My service berries are starting to change color to their fall colors, and I will post a fall, if this fall freeze does not kill all the leaves while they're green on the tree, and if we get some fall color, I'll do a fall color video also. But the fall color on these when they're in full color are absolutely gorgeous. This is my maypop. Next year I've got to figure out something else to do with this because it just did not work out well in this spot. It was crowded by my garden beds and it's all crowded it down into one little area, and it only produced one small fruit that and this is the fruit down here, and it did not get a chance to ripen. So you can kind of see it's all squished in back here, so I may need to find a place to move it to or something. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I've got to do something else with it. This is what I do to cover my veggies before it freezes. This is a single layer hoop house. I'll show you my double layer ones up in my regular garden beds. But the veggies here, and I'll do another video showing my winter veggies because it's really cold and I don't want to get wet opening it up, so I'm not going to open it up and show you. But they've done really, really well. These have done better than any of my other veggies. So I think this side yard is always going to be saved to do my veggie wintering. They've definitely done a lot better over here. I have not had a chance to clean out my garden beds yet, so I haven't planted my garlic, but everything is still really pretty. Harvested all my tomatoes because after last night the texture would have changed and they wouldn't have been good anyway. But, well, harvested most of them. You can still see a few in there. I covered my fall cabbages and they're just about ready to harvest. You can see a little peek of them in there. The heads are smaller. I did harvest a huge one already, but I planted these in July and they're looking really good. We're just going to keep these covered, through the freezes. They should do fine. Once it starts getting close to below 20 degrees, which I think is going to happen the end of next week, then I'll just harvest all of them. So this is my double hoop house system. On this one, I ran out of plastic because I've been using more plastic on my fruit trees because they got bigger. So I still need to get another layer of plastic over this one. But we've got cabbages and kohlrabi, kale, and some green onions in here. And the same thing in here. This one is fully covered. This is the double layer hoop house. My cauliflower is probably just going to have to get pulled out when I pull everything out. They didn't head up. It's going to be too cold for them. And the grasshoppers basically decimated them. Peach trees are starting to go dormant. I'm hoping for a better year next year. This year was greatly reduced harvest because of a late spring freeze that happened just as the blossoms opened. And there's my cherry tree that's getting ready to go dormant too. I had about half the normal harvest on that. But my apples did really well. I'll link a video up above on my apple harvest, and I just finished harvesting my Jonah Gold, which didn't give me as many as I thought it would. So I was a little disappointed on that one, but they were good, so we're still really happy. And here's a view of from the top of my garden before it goes to bed for the winter. Rosemary got a good deep soak. The key to keeping rosemary alive over winters in cold climates. This one is almost 15 years old. And it's gone through some severely cold weather. There was one year where it actually went from 50 degrees down to below 0 Fahrenheit in just a couple of days. And it survived that really well. There was only one winter where it died back a little bit. It died back about 2/3, and it was because I hadn't figured out that it needed to be watered really heavily before the ground froze. So it was a dry winter and an exceptionally cold dry winter. There was no snow cover and the ground was dry, and that's why it died back. But if you remember to water it really deeply just before it freezes, and then once a month or so, if you don't get any precipitation and the ground's not frozen, and then they do absolutely beautifully. So this is an ARP rosemary. And my hemrod probably still has grapes on it. Look at this. I get a second crop of grapes off of my hemrod every single year. So they fruit really early on normal years, and I don't think we're ever going to get what I count as a normal year. These were usually ripe by June. Now they're getting ripe by the end of July. But right about the time that they're getting ripe, they flower again and set fruit. And it's a much smaller crop, but I get my early table grapes again this time of year. Now just for one more look, what is blooming the end of November just before the killing frost? Sundancer daisies are going strong still. Of course, we've got the mums, the alyssum, we've got the last few flowers on the hummingbird mint, the drops of Jupiter oregano that's quickly becoming my favorite plant. Has bloomed and bloomed and bloomed and is still doing beautifully. And it'll probably just get killed back with this frost. My mountain crest pom-pom dianthus has never stopped blooming. Isn't that gorgeous? And then finally, the catmint. This one is not going to stop blooming until the frost kills it, and then they'll kill it and they'll keep those blue blooms just, in a frozen dead state, and then I'll just cut it back. So thank you for coming along with me and seeing what is blooming in October in my drought tolerant garden. So this is the last tour that I'm going to have of blooming plants in 2022, because by tomorrow they're all going to be gone. But now we're ready to think about next year. Yes, I start thinking about next year right as my garden beds start dying. I even start thinking about that before. That's the fun of gardening. Everything can change next year. Whether it was a good year or bad year, it can even be better next year. So I would love to hear what your garden is doing right now. Have you already had your killing frost? Do you still have things going and blooming? Or are you one of those lucky people who get to garden all year? And if so, what are you growing right now? And I hope my videos have been helpful for you. And if they've been helpful, I hope you like, subscribe, share them with your friends, share some comments below, and go have a wonderful garden adventure.